Conversion rate matters because all the work that is done, your whole existence really, as to why you've earned a reputation, you've connected with referrals, maybe you advertise, all these things are to get an opportunity to see a patient. And it's something that typically gets ignored. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Physician Growth Accelerator, a show where we break down your medical practice vitals into systems, give you the tools to diagnose root cause of what may be restricting your growth, and, most importantly, prescribe what the heck to do about it. I'm your host, Zed Williamson. For the past 2 decades, I've studied human behavior and applied those learnings working with hundreds of private medical practices to create predictable growth. Why human behavior? Well, I believe every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. When we believe that, we realize that we can create or affect the outcome that we want. Typically, those systems are built with humans, so being able to drive human behavior change is an important piece. Now, if you ever want to check your practice vitals, you can go to physiciangrowthaccelerator.com and click Check My Vitals. Now, the vital that we're going to talk about today is the capture vital. So this is made up of what we refer to as conversion. Conversion is simply the idea, if we wanted to see if we were doing a good job at this or not, here's the question we would ask. Will a patient in need that's seeking help easily convert to a new patient appointment? That's conversion. It's important because it is a step in the lever that has so much to do with the business outcome of your practice. And why do we care about that? We need healthy medical practices so that you're able to treat more patients, so that you're able to stay independent, build a moat around your practice so that you're less influenced by referral patterns getting gobbled up by hospital systems, less influenced by the fluctuation of insurance reimbursements, costs going up, and less impacted by the challenges with staff being taken by other industries. So when we think about conversion, it's simply the math of someone trying to get to you and them turning into that first patient appointment. So what influences this? There's some systems that are technical that influence this, and then there are systems that are human. So first, let's go into the technical side. The structure of your schedule matters. If you think about if you just let your schedule be wide open, no one put any thought into it, you can accidentally create a scenario that keeps you from achieving your business goals. What do I mean by that? Well, if all appointment slots are exactly the same and patients come in, then it doesn't matter if they're your ideal patient or not as to where they get slotted. That can be an issue based on how busy your schedule is. We have some very reliable data, because it's based on hundreds of thousands of appointments, that if your ideal patient appointment, and the ideal patient being the one that is the healthiest for your practice, it's the most fun for you to treat, you always get great outcomes, the patients walk away feeling very served, they're complimenting the practice, they feel better, and it's healthy for your business. That's your ideal patient. So the ideal patient, if their appointment is more than 5 business days into the future, the no-show rate goes up significantly, like 50%. 5 business days, that's the key. So if you're not paying attention to your schedule and you're just letting it happen, and it doesn't matter where patients are, your team could accidentally be putting ideal patients farther out into the future. Now, if your first available appointments are, 2 months down the line, you have other issues, that's other constraint. There's definitely ways to fix that too. But today we're talking about your appointment scheduling. So look at your schedule and think about how can you structure slots that keep slots for your ideal patients open so that you're always getting those patients in within 5 business days of them calling. That's a technical system scenario. Now, on the human side, Let's talk about when a patient talks to someone who works at your office. Does your staff know who your ideal patient is? Do they know the symptoms that that ideal patient would be suffering with? And do they connect with that patient when they call? Here's an example. If your staff answers the phone, "Hi, doctor's office, please hold," you just lowered your conversion rate. If they come back and they say, "Can I get your date of birth?" you just lowered your conversion rate. If your practice says, "Hi, may I help you?" you lowered your conversion rate. If patients ask questions and your staff just answers them and stops talking, you lowered your conversion rate. Why is that? Let's walk through an example phone call. Someone calls your office and they say, "Hi, office, how may I help you?" And the patient asks a question. Why? Because your staff forced them to by saying, "How may I help you?" You think you're being nice, but in reality, you're putting the entire onus of this conversation onto the caller. And so the caller's going, "Do you take Blue Cross?" And the person answers, "Yeah," and silence. And the caller feels like they have to fill this void. So they're going, "Do you have an office in this city?" "Yeah." More void to fill. When you see how this can easily go down the path, and if you had your staff that answer the phones listening to this, they'd probably be smiling, because I can tell you exactly how that phone call ends. It goes, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll probably call back to schedule an appointment." Not the best outcome. That means we did not convert. So what happened here? Well, so from a standpoint of bias in neuroscience, this patient was not calling to ask those questions. This patient had an issue that they felt that possibly you could solve. By your staff saying, "How may I help you?" we put the patient under the spotlight and said, "Hey, and now you." And then they have to say what they think they're supposed to say. And so they start asking questions that just come to mind. They're really not important questions. They probably would have booked an appointment without asking any of those questions. And then when your staff just answers it and doesn't follow up with anything, the patient thinks they're supposed to keep doing this. And then it ends in no appointment. So what does the other way sound like? Well, if you're a specialty, you tend to have an idea of what kind of issues your most ideal patients are suffering with. Let's say you're a urologist and your ideal patients are dealing with urological problems, difficulties urinating, stuff like that. Then you could actually answer the phone in a way that calls that out so patients can raise their hand or say, "Oh, no, that's not what I'm dealing with." What would that sound like? So it would sound like, "Hi, thanks for calling medical practice. My name is Zed. Can I get your name?" And the patient goes, "Bob." Then I would say, "Hi, Bob. You dealing with some fill-in-the-blank issues?" It's okay if they're not. The biggest pushback we get on this is like, "Well, what if they're not?" Well, guess what? They tell you. But the people who are your ideal patients, instantly connect and they go, "Oh my gosh, I called the right place. Thank you." And they're answering your question, which means you control the conversation. So now they go, "Yeah, I've been dealing with this. And your person could say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Luckily, we fix those things. Let's get you in for an appointment." And typically the patient goes, "Okay." That's it. You have faster phone calls, a higher conversion rate. The patient has a better experience on the phone. They got done what they actually wanted to do, and it's better for your staff. But Zed, that can't be how all calls go. You're right. It's not. Some patients are really interested to chat it up, and they may ask questions. And what happens is the problem with questions, sometimes they're questions that the person at the front desk can answer. Sometimes they don't really know and they have to give a guidance. And sometimes they shouldn't be answering the questions because maybe they're clinical in nature. One of my favorite things to do in this instance is to just call that out to the patient. So a patient goes, "Yeah, I've been dealing with this. Okay, let's book an appointment." "Well, I have a question." "Great. Do you have a pen handy?" "Well, yeah, I do." Awesome. Would you write that question down and bring it in for your appointment? And the patient goes, oh, that makes so much sense. And you'll notice your staff will start telling you that patients are coming in with questions, which is nice because now they've pre-thought what they're coming in for. It's a better experience. It's better for the practice. It's better for the patient. It's better for conversion. The more you do this, the more likely you are to get that patient into the practice. So identify that ideal patient. Who is the best patient for your practice? Identify the symptoms that person is dealing with and just call that out on the phone call so that they feel like they've connected. Now, sometimes people can go to your website and book an appointment there. If that's the case, go through the process yourself and just from a standpoint of, are there any barriers here? Are we making it harder than it needs to? Just be aware, because sometimes online appointment setting can be disastrous with how many questions are asked. And you don't know how many patients started down the path and then just gave up. And if you're the type of person that wants to say, well, if they gave up, it probably wasn't that big of a deal. I hear you. It's just you're not right. And that's because of bias and heuristics. Because of what is going on in the brain of that patient, they are mentally looking for ways to avoid something that maybe they have a negative opinion about. And when you make it easier for them to avoid it, then they ricochet off in another direction, and they are no longer a possible appointment for you. And they've wasted time on your phone staff, or you maybe spent money to try to get them to your website, and they didn't end up doing anything. The other thing that we want to think about is the schedule aligned with our business goal? So what does that mean? If we know that ideal patients are best to be seen within 5 business days, and we have a goal of seeing X number of those patients, does your schedule line up with being able to achieve that specific outcome? Because sometimes it's the math that just doesn't work. And there's no way for you to change the skill set of the person handling the calls or the experience online if the actual schedule itself does not align with the business goals. So that's something that's really important to check. Overall, you want to think about this patient as someone who doesn't have a lot of inertia. So think about it this way. Let's say you have a long hallway and you need a ball to make it down that hall. And in one hand, you have a bowling ball. And there's some things in the hall, maybe some leaves, like some strings, some things that are kind of in the way. If you roll the bowling ball, it's going to make it past all those things and get to the other end. That is not this new patient. From a mental standpoint, they are more like a ping pong ball. They are heavily distracted because there are things going on inside their head, heuristics and bias, that are basically helping them second guess the behaviors. And when you roll a ping pong ball down a hall that's got leaves and string, it can easily be shot off to the wrong direction, and it doesn't make it to the end. So you want to think about those things as it relates to patients being able to book an appointment in your practice. Conversion rate matters because all the work that is done, your whole existence really, as to why you've earned a reputation, you've connected with referrals, maybe you advertise, all these things are to get an opportunity to see a patient. Conversion is taking that opportunity and making it real. And it's something that typically gets ignored. People are unaware of what their conversion rate is. They're unaware of all the little pieces in the system that keep a patient from feeling comfortable in regards to coming to your practice. So take a look at your schedule. Have you created slots for your ideal patients? Listen to how your staff talks to patients. Do we say, "How may I help you?" Stop it. Do we put people on hold? Do we sound rude? Are we difficult to book an appointment? Any of those things are in place, they're hurting your conversion rate. And in the end, that's restricting your ability to grow. If you ever have questions about the stuff we talk about on this podcast, visit physiciangrowthaccelerator.com. While you're there, you can also click a button to check your vitals. Please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode, and give us a review. Love to hear your feedback and share it with everyone you know. Remember, every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. If you don't like the result, we just got to tweak the system. We'll see you next time on the Physician Growth Accelerator. Thanks.